Hello again, it's me, Patrick, with the third and final lecture from Chapter 2 of Corey Floyd's Interpersonal Communication. This time I'll be talking about gender and sexuality. Again, it's pretty amazing that we're covering this topic in just one half of one chapter in this class. There is so much to talk about. But you'll see that as we move forward this semester, that almost every chapter we read will touch on how gender differences affect communication. Before going too far, I also want to share that I don't necessarily agree with the way Floyd frames his discussion of gender and sexuality. To be clear, Floyd has a lot more training and has done more research in communication than I have, and I'm not saying he's in any way factually wrong. But because the field of communication is so subjective, those that study and teach communication will sometimes disagree in the way it's presented. First, for the purpose of this class, when we discuss gender, we won't use Floyd's overarching definition he references on page 51. Instead, when I use the term gender, I'll normally be referencing the social construct of what it means to be male or female. But this is almost too simple. You see, gender as we know it in 2018 is no longer a binary. Because of the social construction of gender, there are now people who identify along a spectrum of gender fluidity. On top of that, there are people who don't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. Before moving on, let's talk about gender versus biological sex. Your biological sex is determined by the combination of X and Y chromosomes you receive from your biological parents. Two X chromosomes is considered to be biologically a female, and a person with an X and a Y chromosome is considered to be biologically a male. There are variations on these chromosomal differences which can complicate the notion of biological sex. And others are born with sex organs that do not match their appearance, or may be born with both sets of sex organs. Normally, at birth, the doctor, in consultation with the parents, will make a choice as to what sex the child should be, and perform surgery accordingly. This is extremely rare, and obviously ethically controversial. Now, for the most part, we're not going to discuss biological sex in this class, as we're much more interested in the social constructs of gender. For most people, their gender matches their biological sex. These people are called cisgender. So, if your biological sex is a female, that is, you have female sex organs and XX chromosomes, and this matches your perception of yourself, you would be cisgender. I am a male biologically, and my perception of myself is as a male, and thus I am also cisgender. Others experience their perceived gender as different from their biological sex. These people are often referred to as transgender. So, if a person was assigned the biological sex of a female at birth, but later in life comes to feel that they are a man, then that person might identify as a transgender man, or trans man for short. Similarly, a person assigned the sex of male at birth might ultimately identify with the female gender role and considers themselves a trans man. A trans woman, rather. I'm sure you've all heard about the high-profile case of Caitlyn Jenner, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, an Olympic athlete and step-parent to the Kardashians. In 2015, Caitlyn came out as trans and raised awareness about trans issues. There is so much to unpack, but you just need to know that your gender is made up of a set of cultural and societal expectations, is often influenced, but not dictated, by our biological sex, and is a representation of how we perceive ourselves. It's part of our identity. Another way the book diverges from my worldview is when it discusses sexual orientation as part of gender. I can't agree more with Floyd when he says that our sexual orientation affects our communication with others. It really does. But sexual orientation has nothing to do with gender at all. Men, women, and those who don't identify with a gender binary all experience various levels of sexual interest. The predominant sexual orientation is heterosexual, but there are examples of bisexuality, homosexuality, and asexuality in all gender types, not to mention a wide range of sexual orientations not covered here, such as pansexuality, aromanticism, demisexuality, demi-romanticism, and scoliosexuality. I could go on, but this video is already getting a bit long. Suffice it to say, there is a lot to think about when it comes to gender and sexuality. I realize a lot of the time we joke about gender and sexuality, but I think that comes from a place of discomfort. Whenever we encounter something or someone different than us, our defense mechanisms kick in. For many people, that means making fun of it, laughing, for example, at the notion of preferred pronouns for transgender people. For another, smaller group of people, violent tendencies kick in. This leads to sexual minorities and trans persons to be the target of bullying and violence at a significantly higher rate than straight, cisgender individuals. And we haven't even gotten to how gender and sexuality affect our communication, but we'll be talking about this for the rest of the semester. Until then, do some quick research and see what you can find. The more we know, the more we can engage with others. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.